Hi everybody, Mike and Leslie here.
Hello.
And we have a special guest with us today. This is Jocelyn Williams.
Yeah.
She actually used to be our children's pastor here at Trinity, which was awesome. We loved having her as a part of our team. But recently she felt the Lord moving her in a different direction, and she is now a consultant for neurodevelopmental movement. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Which is really cool, really fascinating stuff, and she's going to share about that a little bit. So.
Okay, I think that, at least for me as a parent, so we live in suburban Indianapolis. And I think a lot of suburban people, but not just suburban people, I'm kind of going to pick on them for a minute, but a lot of us, it's like this: we want our kids to beat other kids. I want my kid to talk first. I want my kid to walk first. I want my kid to be potty trained first. There's so much pressure on our children, even with sports. Like, we're doing like personal coaches for girls that are, our daughter plays soccer, personal coaches for girls that are like in third grade, second grade. It's just push them forward faster, push them forward faster, push them forward faster. And in all of this rushed development, we're finding that there's some accidental developmental things that we're tinkering with that might be a problem.
We're missing stuff, or there's gaps that we're finding.
So let's talk about that. Let's just talk about that development process a little bit.
Okay, so Jocelyn, thanks for being here,
Yep.
by the way. We're glad to have you. So starting with infancy, what's important to know about kids' development?
Great question. It's super important to know that our infants need to go through their developmental sequence. And so many of our kids are missing large portions of that. For example, they should be doing tummy time about 50% of their waking hour. They should be moving from tummy time to actual tummy crawling, which is more of like, some might equate it to an army crawl. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. From there, you move to hands and knees creeping, and then walking. But so many of our children are missing those developmental milestones, and they're just rushing through. Maybe the child doesn't want to be in their tummy, they don't feel comfortable, or they'll spend time in bouncy seats or swings. But the problem with that is that during that first year of life, that's when the lower levels of the brain develop.
Okay.
And those lower levels of the brain are responsible for automatic functions. For example, it's responsible for feeling safe, secure, bonded. So if I rush through this stage later on in life, I might battle with anxiety more than my peer.
Which we're seeing a lot.
We're seeing a lot of that. Many of my clients battle with anxiety because they've missed so many pieces of their developmental sequence.
Okay.
Right. So rushing that, like when we rush kids through this, I don't want them on tummy time. I want them, go to the next stage as fast as possible. I want them walking. I want my kid to walk faster than yours. I want my kid, all of that developmental stuff, when you rush it, it really does mess with the development of the mind.
It does.
Huh.
It does, because think about it this way. We all know how to breathe, correct? So that's an automatic function. Nobody taught you how to breathe. So the lower levels of the brain, they need movement in order to develop, not logic.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
the upper levels of the brain, the walking, talking, thinking part of the brain, we
Right.
can teach through logic. 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
You cannot do that with the lower levels. They need to have movement.
Huh.
So many of our kids are missing the movement needed
Right.
to shore up the lower levels of the brain. So think about it this way. Many of us know the story of the wise man and the foolish man.
Right.
The wise man built his house on a rock.
Right.
So when the storms came, that wise man's house stood firm and sure.
Right.
But for the foolish man, he built his house on sand.
Right.
So when the winds and waves came, what happens to his house?
Right.
It falls
Spoke
apart.
about it, yeah.
So our brain develops one level at a time, one step at a time.
Right.
So if the lower levels are not developed,
Right.
well, it's like
You lose your
building,
foundation.
you lose
Huh.
your foundation. It's like building your house on sand.
Okay.
That is
So-
interesting.
Question for parents, like our youngest is 3 now, so we're past these stages, but I remember my kids resisting tummy time. So is that normal, and what's the advice for parents for that specifically?
'Cause parents are
your
almost
kids
proud.
they're just crying, they don't want to be in
Sure,
their tummy, but
sure.
I mean, even my doctor told me that was important. I don't think I knew how important it was until now,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
Sure.
okay, can you speak into that?
Sure, that's a great question. I guess the best way to answer that, it's typical. There are some kids, it's very common now for kids not to like to be on tummy time.
Huh.
And there are other reasons for that. But that's not okay.
Yeah.
So if they're not staying on their tummy, then I would speak with a developmental consultant or a really good lactation consultant, like Kathy Thomas. She's
Right.
phenomenal. Sometimes the child could have reflux, or they could have a tongue tie.
Right.
And the tongue tie is causing them to not want to be on their tummy.
Interesting.
And so if you get some of the structural or nutritional things in place, then they will comply, go on their tummies, and they should be fine.
Yeah.
So if a
Okay.
baby does not want to be on their tummy, I would definitely look into that.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
That's really good advice. Okay, and then advice for parents with older kids, and like we talked about, there's a lot of kids with anxiety today, or all kinds of different issues like that. So, parents with older kids who might have missed some of this important development, what would you say to them?
That's awesome. Great question. So the good thing is, we know.
Yeah.
Here's what I love about the program.
Okay.
I'll start there. No man created this program. Researchers researched and observed infants, human infants, all around the world doing this developmental sequence. And so we know God designed every human infant to go through this process.
Right.
And so he's the God of second chances, right?
Right.
So if a child is suffering with anxiety, or here's another big example, they're having a struggle with reading.
Okay.
Well, typically reading isn't a function. Typically if a child is having difficulty reading, it's usually their eyes are not tracking well, which is something that begins when you're just holding that baby, feeding them, okay? So the wonderful thing is God is a God of second chances, so we can replicate the developmental sequence. They can go back through it, and a lot of these issues can be resolved.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of
That's
a,
really cool.
it's a, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it is a natural, I mean, not like necessarily like a homeopathic thing put on it, but it's literally just looking at nature and letting the natural process be the remedy for some of these things rather than just drugging
No
kids
medication,
up.
yeah.
No
right.
medication.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I got just honestly though, the real question, I think a lot of people are probably wondering this too. Two of them come to mind, but the first one is this, and I know the answer already because we've talked about it, but the question is, does this stuff actually work?
That is a phenomenal question. It absolutely does work.
Yeah.
One, some of my kids actually did the program.
Right.
And I took my experience as an educator, as
Yep.
a pastor
Yep.
of children here at Trinity, and just 25 years of education working with children. I have 5 kids of my own. 3 of them are adopted.
Right.
And we tried everything for
Right.
them, and things were not working for some of the kids. And I came across this process, and
Yeah.
it worked.
Yeah.
And so then I was invited to be trained in it, so then I became trained in it. And I'm working with clients every day, and I'm seeing amazing results.
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
it works. Is it easy? Is it a quick fix? Here's
Right.
a pill?
Right.
No.
Nope. Yeah.
It's a process. But I tell you, it's a whole lot easier
Yeah.
if your baby's doing it
Right.
Yeah.
than an older child. But it's so worth it. In fact, I have lots of
Yeah.
stories to tell you about that. But yes, it does work.
So what would you say, and I know we got to wrap it up because you're supposed to be quick. I like that one piece of advice, tummy time. That's a great place to start. But what would you say to the parent, and I would definitely be guilty of this for sure, but what would you say to the parent that just is like, the suburban, always in a hurry, always going, I mean, it's like, I want my kid to be potty trained as fast as possible. I want my kid to walk as fast as possible. I want to, in sports, I want to personally train as fast as possible. Just that drive, push, to the natural tendency within us just to push things as quick as possible. What would you say to parents that kind of feel that pressure?
I would say slow it all the way down.
Yeah.
Let your baby go through their normal developmental sequence. If you have questions or concerns, seek out help.
Yeah.
But for example, I see this and it actually makes my heart ache when I see people holding up a 10-month-old. Oh, they're walking, they're so smart. Well, the fact is they probably are super intelligent and they figured that out very quickly.
Right.
However, they need the lower levels of the brain to be developed
Right.
so that when they go to school and they apply themselves, they can actually do it.
Right.
Because if they don't go through their developmental sequence, then they can have things like retained reflexes.
Right.
And that would become stumbling blocks later on in school. So they go to sit down to do math, super highly intelligent, but they can't sit still.
Right.
They can't sit still because they have the wiggles, because they have a retained reflex that wasn't resolved by going through the developmental sequence.
Man.
So I would say slow it all the way down.
Right.
They're only going to be a baby for a year.
Right.
It's 1 year out of an entire lifetime. It's such
Slow
an
it down.
important, precious time, and you're not going to get that time back. I mean, we
Right.
do marbles now here that kind of show
Represent,
us, that
yeah.
represent how much time we have with our children, and 1 year in a lifespan is very short.
Yeah.
So I would say
Slow
slow it
down.
all the way down.
So
Take a deep-
patience is key.
Take a deep
Yes.
breath as a parent, slow
Take a
down.
deep breath.
I love it. Okay, so then I would just say before we end this, the truth is there will be people that will watch this that are going, man, I could use some more help. And I know there are people that will watch this that probably don't even live in the Indianapolis area. But even if you don't live in the Indianapolis area, especially if you do live here, how could they reach out to you? Is there a way for them to get in contact with you? Because we do want to help people,
Sure.
have healthy families, healthy lives, raise kids with the tools that they need to be able to, be highly producing, effective people in culture. And so how could people reach out to you if they have more questions or concerns or comments? How can they find you?
Sure, no problem. I'd be happy to help and speak with people. They can contact me at neurally.com or nsibrain.com or my business cell phone, and that's 317-936-6797.
Yeah, that's awesome. We love it. And I will tell you, Jocelyn was on my staff for a few years, and she is actually pretty awesome. And so she is, man, whether it's sitting in the pastor seat, graduate school educate, all the way down the line, she has incredible insight. And so I would encourage you to listen, because I actually learned a lot working with you too. It was an honor for sure.
Thanks for being with us.
Yep.
You're welcome. It's an honor.
Yep, thank you. All right, you want to sign us off?
That's all we have for you today.
All right.
Thank you.